MGunter, the Officer of Minority Affairs, the Director of the Office of Minority Affairs at Tennessee State University, and this is a continuation of our discussion of Brown versus the Board of Education and diversity in public education, public higher education. And of course, Mr. Gunter, let me welcome you to this particular segment of the show. And to tell you, Mr. Gunter, how delighted we are to have you here, because I think that your appearance will give us an opportunity to sort of round up the first two segments that we had dealing with diversity in public education, in higher public education. Let's see if we can have you to give us a little information about your background, your education, and then we'll talk about the Office of Minority Affairs at Tennessee State University.
I received my undergraduate degree in communications from Austin Peay State University and stayed there and received my master's as well. I first came to Tennessee State University as a consultant for a trainer of the trainers program to coordinate their culminating conference and to put together a directory. The Trainer of the Trainers program was geared toward making African Americans leaders, better leaders in their community. From there I went to direct, still at Tennessee State University, a grant through the USDA that was geared toward reducing the rapid decline of minority land loss among farmers. We dealt with a lot of minority farmers, primarily in West Tennessee, and I stayed there for 6 years, and then in 2000 came to Student Affairs, and have been the Director for Minority Student Affairs since 2000.
Now, Mr. Gunter, the Office of Minority Affairs at Tennessee State University has to be a very relatively new office, just by the very name, and being such an office on the campus of an historical black institution. Let's talk about that. I mean, how did that kind of office come into being?
It all came about under the merger that you were discussing earlier, actually, when the UT Nashville and Tennessee State merged in the late 1970s. And it was brought about to help ensure that more minority students, in this case Caucasian students, were attending TSU, and that they had a successful experience there.
And this would be a sort of an office that would deal with that?
Right, to deal with any issues or problems that may arise for minority students, to act basically as a liaison between the university departments and the minority students.
Now, how does this fit into Brown versus the Board of Education, from what we've already said about Brown versus the Board of Education? What is the purpose of this office, and how does that fit into that?
We, at Tennessee State University, we want to create a very diverse student body. We have one of the most diverse faculties of any college probably in the United States, and we are really trying to keep a diverse student body as well. One of the things that I work with is retention programs, for example, to make sure that not only we receive, minority students want to come to the university, but they want to stay. I have various organizations that I serve as the advisor for or work with, but all the organizations that I work with are not strictly for minority students. They are diversity organizations, and the primary focus is to have multicultural membership bases in those. So my goal is to have the minority students at TSU to become integrated in university life and in campus activities, to feel as they are a part of the university as any other student.
You mentioned, and I think we talked about the Office of Minority Affairs, but you point out that you're not only concerned with minority affairs, but there are also other areas in diversity that you're concerned with, age and et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk about it from that perspective. How does that help to create diversity? Talk about it.
Well, one thing that came out as a result of the consent decree is our Guyer Non-Traditional Student Scholarship. It's geared toward returning students, or students who have been out of school for at least 2 years that are returning to school, and to get more non-traditional. Tennessee State, as you're well aware of, has a broad base of non-traditional students, but we're trying to still increase the number of non-traditional students at the university and the number of minority students. And that scholarship that was introduced last year is one means to do that.
And of course, when you mention minority, Office of Minority Affairs on the campus of Tennessee State University, you can also say that there is an Office of Minority Affairs, essentially the same kind of office on other institutions, Austin Peay and et cetera, et cetera.
They go various names, multicultural affairs, but yes, just about every university has some type of office. In Tennessee, I would be the only one that minority group would be Caucasian, of course, which presents a unique situation, just by the mere fact that you know, white students coming to TSU, it's the first time in their life. For most of them, they've been a minority. So it's a new experience, but it's also an experience that they can carry with them throughout the rest of their life. So.
Now, having had contact with a large number of students who might fall into that category, what do you find to be their general reaction in terms of that kind of situation, coming into being, for the first time, a minority in a majority situation?
Well, I think a lot of them are prepared. They know Tennessee State University is a historically black school, and they're prepared for that. I'm not sure how you prepare yourself to be a minority for the first time. You know, most people that are minorities are born minorities. So here you are, you know, 18 years old, and for the first time in your life, you know, I am a minority. But it kind of gives them an appreciation for the issues that face minority students in general. So I think most of them come in geared to handle that. And when they find out that our university is really accepting of all students, and that we have, I mean, our campus is a beautiful campus. That's the one thing I think is an advantage for me when I work with